You just no. You never like facts and data. You just prefer
facts are
a
the
rant,
biggest tax
an ignorant
increase
rant.
in decade comes in April.
Growth is the government's word of the day. Quite a shopping list. I mean, new runways, thousands of new houses, new reservoirs, new roads, Silicon Valley coming to Bedfordshire of all places. Is this the end of the green agenda? Is Ed Miliband going for a long bath?
I think we can hear him screaming now, can't we? I mean, it'd be in North London somewhere being rolled back, although some of that growth will be with him. For instance, wind turbines, solar farms. So it will be cleaner, cheaper, more secure energy going forward. But it is a shift of emphasis.
It is, isn't it?
It's
almost Trumpian, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it was planned before him, although he's been cutting back Trump infrastructure projects in the US, undoing what Biden was doing, which was an incredibly ambitious programme. But it's putting the economy before the environment.
Who does she think she's kidding? In April, we have the biggest tax rises in decades. £40 billion kick in, national insurance rises for employers who will create the growth that she says she's going to get. Where's that money going to come from? Kevin says they can absorb it, they can afford it. No, they can't. We've seen Sainsbury's say they're going to axe 3,000 jobs, retailers, small businesses. No growth. She's going to stifle growth. She's going to strangle growth. And she's talked down the economy for months and months.
You're worried, aren't you?
I'm not worried.
You are worried.
Yeah, I am worried for the economy.
No,
I'm worried. Kevin, I'm very worried.
Lots of people are worried for the economy, Kevin.
It's terrible what she's doing.
Yeah, there's already been a drop in the number of job vacancies.
The IMF, the International Monetary Fund...
Oh, here we go.
You never like facts and data. You just prefer a rant.
The biggest tax increase in decade comes in April. What does the IMF know? They don't live here. They're not paying the taxes.
There's no growth currently.
The IMF has Britain down as the fastest-growing economy in Europe over the next 2 years. In part, that is because the others are doing poorly.
Funny that.
Got to keep a sense of perspective, unlike him. But it's not all doom and gloom.
Yes, it is.
And wages are going up, I know, but if fewer people are employed, then that's not going to help, is it?
Economic models show when you put up taxes, if that's funding public spending, you get more growth.
Right.
So that will be a plus. That budget will turn out to be a plus because it's investing so much money in public services, particularly the NHS.
That's in the public sector, but Andrew's point is that the increase in taxes is going to reduce the private sector.
Certainly is.
Oh, a very small amount. I looked at the Office for Budget
Response. 40 billion?
You're in a £2.5 trillion economy. I mean, look,
get a grip, man.
Get a grip.
Do you think everything's rosy?
No, of course it's not. And there are forces outside that can batter you very quickly. The one that we're really worried about now, if you think the last 20 years, the British economy has had 4 big hits. One was the global financial collapse. The second was Brexit, which took 4%, or will take 4% off the economy. Third was COVID. The fourth was Putin, Ukraine, and Liz Truss combined.
Yeah. And the fifth is Rachel Reeves.
Fifth is
Donald
Trump.
Rachel Reeves, and the biggest one of the lot.
Is Donald
can we also say, she's not just
Trump.
whacking us with more taxes, she's borrowing more, and the cost of borrowing has gone up.
Setting all that aside, it's all very southern-oriented, isn't it? I mean, it's Silicon Valley and Bedfordshire, between Oxford and Cambridgeshire. You've got runways at Luton, Gatwick, Heathrow. You've got new reservoirs, rivers being diverted.
At least
thousands of houses being built. Absolutely nothing for the north. Nothing for Manchester.
No. Trafford, Old Trafford, around there.
Oh.
There is, I agree, it is, it looks...
It's very southern.
It looks too southern, but there are things for the north bits. I think there should be more for the north and the Midlands, because I think the southern economy is overheated in the southeast, and we want to spread prosperity around the country more than we do now, which is one of the reasons why I'd oppose another runway at Heathrow.
Luton, Gatwick and Heathrow. Nothing for Birmingham Airport.
Nope.
Nothing.
Nothing for Manchester.
Nothing for Manchester Airport.
I'll tell you something that's projected to grow, and that's the UK population. It's projected to reach 72.5 million by mid-2032, and that is up nearly 5 million from what it was in 2022. It's going to surpass the population of France. In fact, I think we might even have surpassed the population of France. And the driver of that growth is migration. Now, who's going to jump on this more than anybody else?
Nigel Farage.
Nigel Farage from Reform.
Yeah, of course he is.
He says it's the biggest issue that faces our country. Even if we build the 1.5 million homes that Labour say they'll build, that won't be enough to cope with the numbers coming during the course of the next 4 years, let alone the backlog.
And Susanna, in the figures, OK, so the population grows by 5 million by 2032. Predicted 10 million people coming in. It's 10 million foreigners coming into Britain, 5 million leaving. This is going to do nothing for integration. It's going to do nothing for social cohesion. It's going to do the reverse. And there are already strains all over the country.
It's going to win Reform the next election.
He says that about everything.
Well, I think he's got a good point, because I think people are terrified by this. It's appalling. We can't cope with it.
It's a projection based on the figures, which are largely at the end of the last government. It doesn't mean those figures. They've just taken the figure in 1 year and said, if that carries on,
we need a cap.
Then you will be here. That figure is almost certainly going to drop.
The Prime Minister's ruled out a cap, though.
Well, we need one.
Yeah, he has ruled out a cap, but he's also said he wants to get the figure down. It's just, if you bring in a cap, the Conservatives never hit their caps. They bust them enormously.
Because under David Cameron, he said he wanted tens of thousands, which would have meant under 100,000.
Yeah, and he never got anywhere
But under
near
the Tory government, it went up to
700,000.
Yeah.
Shocking.
More than that, in 1 year, it was a million.
It was a record, but then you had people coming in from Ukraine.
Yeah.
They could say we could have just shut the door and said they couldn't in. Then you had Hong Kong Chinese, who we said could come in to flee Beijing from what was a former British colony. And then you saw there are skill gaps. Where would you get your carers from?
How do we...
We need to tackle that in Britain by paying carers more and treating them better and with greater respect. But until that is done, care would collapse.
It's crazy. We're bursting at the seams. We're bursting at the seams already.
History has many. Sorry,
it's terrible.
Just got to say before people, some perspective again. Population projections based on figures like this have often been proved to be totally wrong.
What I was going to ask you both is, do you think that if Britain and the British government can follow Trump on the green issues, do you think it's possible that it could follow Trump on immigration?
Wish we would.
Well, do you think it might?
No. No chance. Absolutely no. The Tories were rubbish on it, and Labour are going to be even worse.
Why do you say that?
They've got no...
Why don't you see? It's just nonsense.
Well, let me answer the question. OK, you answer the question for me, Maguire. Answer it for me. Answer it for me.
I'll point out, do you think under Labour, net migration is going to top in any single year more than 700,000?
I hope not.
No, it won't.
So
there we are. So Labour will have a lower figure.
Labour were asked again and again what number would they put on how many people they want to go into this country. They refused. They refused again and again to put a target. OK, so the Tories didn't even get to the target, but at least they tried. They didn't even try to put a target because they don't give a damn. I said before the election, and I say it again, open all hours. In they come. In they come.
That's just... Look, come on, this is... Come on. Stop this, please, because it's going to incite people to racism.
They're going to listen to 5 million people by 2032.
Kevin, surely being able to understand, analyse and project how many people are coming actually helps planning. Because you need to provide services for the people who are coming. You also need to argue a positive case for immigration because you need to point out to the electorate that certain number of immigrants are needed because they bolster the economy, because they support our public services, because they pay taxes,
they come here to
and
work,
they contribute to growth.
Take our corners in football matches, look, contribute hugely to society, as many people do, and that argument is too often not heard.
That's right. But surely figures need to be put on that in order to argue that.
As I begin to make the case, too often it's just say, look, you've got to stop this, inciting people.
5 million people, almost the size of London, going to be here by 2032. Where are we going to put them?
I think London's
Where are we going to put them?
See, even that's wrong.
Where are we going to put them?
London is more than double
It's
that.
8 million. Where are we going to put them? No houses, no school spaces, NHS is breaking...
Well, I think Rachel Reid is going to talk about growth today, she may have an answer to that.
As she completely screws the country with the biggest tax burden in decades.
Let's not talk down the economy.
No, she's done that for years.
Because that's something you're against.
She's done that for months.
No, he's for it all the time.
She's done it for months.
He's a professional talker downer.
The Court of Appeal is going to be in session a bit later this morning. They're going to be hearing appeals to get the Just Stop Oil protesters out of jail. They got some very stiff sentences running for quite a few years, last year and the year before, for protests like this, the ones which completely stopped the M25 for hours upon hours upon hours. Ambulances stuck in the queues, people not able to get to funerals. There were all sorts of knock-on effects. And the jail sentences reflected a huge public backlash against this. Chris Packham, who we'll be talking to later, is backing these appeals. Do you think there's any argument that those sentences were too stiff?
Not stiff enough.
Not stiff enough?
No, terrible. Terrible. And if the Rachel
Why do you roll your eyes at
if
that?
she's talking about growth, how do those disputes gumming up roads, road networks, help growth? Terrible.
Well, her plans for growth and backing the builders, not the blockers, is going to lead to more protests.
They're the blockers.
Well,
and also these people just alienate their cause.
Yep.
If people may have some sympathy, but they alienate it. But going on stage the other day with Sigourney Weaver and saying it outrages people.
If you create protests like that, it is counterproductive. There's no question. People aren't talking about your cause. They're talking against you and the disruption you've inflicted on people in their lives. But they're not violent. They don't attack people. But if you break court orders and you're banned from doing that type of protest, and then you do it again, courts take a very different view, which is why you get those big sentences.
You say they're not violent.
I think they are excessive.
You say they're not violent, but there's such a thing as passive aggression and passive violence. And, I mean, I would agree to the extent that I don't think you can compare, actually, throwing a can of tomato soup at a glass-covered painting and shutting the M25 for 8 hours. I think there's a huge difference, because if you do that, the latter, well, you're risking people dying. You do not know. We have this picture of an ambulance that was caught in the traffic in one of the demonstrations. There is no way that the people up on the gantry that were blocking the traffic could have any idea what was happening inside that ambulance. There could have been somebody in there who desperately needed to get to hospital for resuscitation and could have died. You simply don't know.
How would a police car get through?
Well, the answer was they couldn't.
And there are enough people already dying because the NHS was put on its knees by his lot when they were in government. I accept that. And I remember the footage of the woman who was going to see her mother, who was really ill in hospital, and she got blocked. She was at the front of the blockage, and she was pleading with them to let her through, and they wouldn't. And I thought they were cold-hearted and were losing public support doing that. But it's whether 5 years, when you haven't physically attacked anybody, you know, people will do less time in prison for beating people up. Beating them up pretty seriously. So is it proportionate to then put them behind bars for longer than somebody who's gone out with an iron bar and smashed somebody around?
That's not how sentences are given out, though. No. A judge doesn't sit there and think, what did someone who committed an assault get? They look at the sentencing guidelines for this particular
Susanna,
offence.
maybe we should have sentencing guidelines that reflect that. And the fact is, if you go around, you physically beat somebody up and you injure them, or you actually break into their home. Yeah. Which I would say is a bigger crime impacting you on that. That's terrible, but the roadworks block traffic.
These people could have contributed to people dying and suffering serious health issues.
But you haven't got any evidence of that.
Well, hang on. Well, we have actually got some very hard evidence.
Who died?
Somebody who was caught in one of those queues, somebody suffering an aggressive form of cancer. This is a matter of fact, Kevin, missed an appointment at their cancer clinic, and they had to wait an extra 2 months for another appointment.
But no one died.
Is a risk.
And my heart and thoughts are with a person who missed.
They'll be so reassured by that.
Who missed. Look, don't keep talking over me, please. Yeah. The person who missed that appointment, I think that was, you know, that's why they shouldn't do it. That's why I oppose what they do and think it is counterproductive. Yeah. But when they do it, is 5 years, and they've broken the law. Is 5 years appropriate? I don't think it is.
That was the longest. There was only one sentence of 5 years, and that was for Roger Hallam.
Yeah. He's the main organiser.
Yeah, you are the theoretician, said the judge, the ideas man. In my judgment, you sit at the very highest level of the conspiracy. Yes, that protest against those sentences, the appeal...
They're martyrs.
Well, we'll be talking to Chris Packham just after 8 o'clock, and we'll be putting all those points to him because he feels passionately that these guys should be out of jail right now. Speaking of crime and punishment, another survey shows that 58% of millennials, that's people born after 1981 and before 1997, 58% of them support the return of the death penalty in this country. And overall, 55% of the British population would like to see hanging restored. And that is a rise. Now,
well, the death penalty, yes.
Well, the death penalty, but
I'm not sure
in this country,
that would be the method.
Well, in the past, obviously, it was hanging. And these figures are rising.
I've never supported the death penalty, but when you see shocking atrocities like what happened in Southport, you think, actually, I can completely understand why people would say it's over.
Southport, when the death penalty was in place until it was abolished in the 1960s, something, wouldn't have applied because he was 17 when he committed the crime.
Well,
it was always 18.
That's wrong as well.
It was always 18 plus. I sometimes get people's knee-jerk reaction because what happened in Southport and the murder of those 3 girls was so terrible. But I just oppose judicial murder, state murder, which is what it is.
If you held a referendum on the death penalty, Andrew, what would be the result?
Oh, I think the public would vote for it, without a doubt. And particularly, I mean, one of my problems with the death penalty, the state often get it wrong.
Yes.
Well, the Timothy Evans case is a classic example,
exactly.
isn't it? Yeah.
But when you've got a clear-cut case of hideous murder, which happened in Southport, guilty plea...
And it wouldn't have applied to.
Yeah, but the law can be changed.
No, but it wouldn't have applied to.
The law, because people... It is so disgusting, it is so outrageous, and people think, what's the point of keeping
Do
this
you
man
remember
at public expense for 52
when we
years?
had the death penalty up until the 60s, was the threshold 18 years old or 21 years old?
I think it was 18. I was chatting to actually a Conservative MP yesterday about this, who actually said when he comes across some people in his own party who are in favour of it, they tend to be on the right of the party. He says, well, I thought you were against Sharia law. Sharia law has a death penalty. He uses that argument. But it is, look, you make mistakes, and I think we've got to be better than that.
Can I throw a curveball?
I think we just have to, but it is horrific.
Kevin, and like you, if there was a referendum today, I would vote against restoring the death penalty on balance. Here's the curveball. What do you think about the fact that Nazis who ran the concentration camps were hanged? Do you think that was a mistake? Do you think that they shouldn't have been hanged?
Yeah, at the time, because of those crimes, in that period, you're right. This period, if you, I don't know, Putin or some of his henchmen were on trial for what's happened in Ukraine, or Hamas leaders had been captured, I would oppose the death penalty. Yeah, I would now. I think it's barbaric. We've got to be better. Mistakes can be made. Sometimes people plead guilty. They video themselves murdering others, and it's absolutely horrific. I'm not sure if we did have a referendum that the country would vote for it. I think when people stopped and thought about it, I think they might take a different view.
Well, for years I've been opposed to it, but when I look at things like Southport, I think maybe I'm wrong.
And again,
maybe we have to bring it back.
You've got to come back. Southport, he was 17. It would not apply.
Yes, OK. Shall we try and talk about something which actually is affecting people today, and that is bin collection? It might be the morning when you put your bins out and you might be thinking, do I put the rubbish bin out today or not? Because you can't remember whether this is the week that it's going to be collected or is it every fortnight. In Bristol, they could become the first English council to introduce a once-a-month rubbish collection.
Madness.
It's a green-led council.
Yes.
Last time it was getting rid of lollipop ladies. They've got a big deficit, and they're thrashing around on how they...
Well, this would save £2 million. This would save £2 million.
Yeah, was it £500,000 on getting rid of lollipop men and women? Yeah. Look, bin collections used to be pretty weekly everywhere until in the coalition government. Eric Pickles was the Environment Secretary, and local authorities were squeezed on their spending. They suffered big cuts, and they're looking around. Look, I'd just like to have it traditional, have your weekly collections. You can put your recycling out, put your food out, put your rubbish that can't be recycled out, but do it every week.
Is once a month doable for a big family?
It's going to... We've already got a problem with rats in our towns. It's going to be even more, and people will... They're just going to put all the stuff in the wrong recycling.
And what about maggots in the summer? Our bins are collected... I'm lucky, our bins are collected every week, but we still have a maggot problem by the time we get to June, July.
Yeah,
it's
gross. In London, they get two collections. Where I stay in London, it's a busy part of London. Tower Hamlets Council, they come round and get your recycling on a Tuesday and get your other household waste on a Thursday, because it's very built up. And if you, in a built-up area, a block of flats in Bristol, where it's just going to accumulate.
Well, Bristol Council say that it will force people to recycle. People who can't be bothered to recycle at the moment will have no alternative.
What, they're only going to collect your recycling now every month too? So you're going to have loads of bottles and
I think
papers.
So in my council, the rubbish collection is every 2 weeks, and you are therefore forced to recycle more. And I am sure it has led to more people thinking before they fill up their rubbish bin, could I recycle that, because that'll get collected much more quickly. The trouble is, it's the food recycling. And I understand they want to force food recycling, and it does, reduce the amount you put in your rubbish bin. But it stinks.
It stinks.
Food recycling stinks. And it's fine if you've got a garden or somewhere outside you can put your food recycling bin. But if you haven't...
I think it's 1 in 7 people or 1 in 7 households are flats.
Yeah.
So they won't. But but food recycling, those caddies you get, I think you might get a small one in the kitchen, a bigger one outside, and you transfer...
You need a bigger one if your rubbish is only going to go...
It's got to be collected every week.
It's got
to... Well, we'll be debating that as well a bit later today.
Let us know what you think, because, the viewers are always...
You already are. Most of you hate it.
The best witnesses on this.
Can let's squeeze one more in here. We were going to get a new submarine called Agincourt, after, of course, Henry V's defeat of the French. The King has stepped in and said, no, this will upset our continental neighbours. Let's call it Achilles. And yet it was his mother who signed off on the name Agincourt.
It's ridiculous. I mean, woke rubbish. Woke rubbish. Why would the French give a hoot?
I don't think
most French people
they'd care.
probably didn't even know about the Battle of Agincourt. 1415, I think it was. It is nonsense.
Why would we name a sub after someone who died in a battle because of a weakness?
Yeah. Something wrong with his heel.
Yes.
It's madness.
Because we didn't want to offend the French.
They're probably hoping you forget the details of it, actually.
Are there any Trojans left? Is this going to upset the Trojans? Because what's the Achilles fight the Trojans?
I'm just surprised, though,
it's just stupid.
That the Navy acquiesced to this and didn't stand their ground.
Well, once the King, presumably, has the final say.
He's Commander-in-Chief, certainly, so... He wears all those medals. He's a former member of the Royal Navy, wasn't he? He had his little fisheries protection or minesweeper or whatever it was back in the day.
It's the worst sort of woke nonsense.
I mean, look, does it really matter?
You know you're talking about the King,
I know. Really I'm a great supporter of the King, but he's wrong on this completely.
Does it really matter?
And, keep your nose out. It's ridiculous.
Is that to me or the King or the French?
Now, here's something that's also going to get you agitated this morning, and that is how we continue to pay the BBC licence fee, because the charter ends, the current charter, at the end of 2027. So they've got 2 and a bit years left of the licence fee income. What does the government do? Because in a world of streaming and many young people saying...
They never watch TV.
Never watch iPlayer, never watch live news, apart from sport, and a lot of that is being filtered off to pay per view. What do we do about the licence fee? And the government is considering making households who only use Netflix and Disney Plus, for instance, still pay the licence fee. That's not going to go down well, is it?
No. It's crazy.
It's because you don't believe people are not watching something from the BBC because the output is so broad and very, very good. Whether it's strictly match of the day, watching the news. So they say, oh, well, we don't watch it, we haven't got a TV in the house. We just watch on a laptop. Or what you watching on...
And why should they get this great subsidy from the state?
I think the BBC is a jewel in our cultural crown, needs to be preserved, but the licence fee itself, I think, is outdated. It's a poll tax because it's the same rate for everybody, whether you've got a huge house with loads of tellies or you've got a tiny flat with one telly, whether your income is $1 million a year or your income is 20 grand a year, but they'll probably kick the can down the road for a bit longer.
I just wonder, but by December the 31st, 2027, if the economy doesn't pick up, if people feel like this is, as you say, another sort of tax, whether the government might be under pressure, perhaps allow BBC to do advertising?
Yeah.
The BBC could do advertising, but it would take that advertising from other broadcasters.
OK.
Yep.
And so the whole sector, the whole British TV sector, broadcasting sector, would be hit.
OK.
20 seconds left, 10 seconds left. Any sympathy around the table for Wyn Evans this morning? It looks like he's lost everything. Looks like he's lost every part of his career.
Appalling behaviour.
He's revealed himself.
Yeah.
He got the benefit of the doubt over the
Gate.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, what he said, unforgivable. You cannot. Can you imagine yourself saying that? Would you want to be that man?
No.
Saying that? No. So good riddance to him.
What's
That's
interesting is that he's received a lot of support from within Strictly, Shirley Ballas and also Katia, his dance partner. Thank you both.